Howdy, historians!
I'm Maya.
I'm Diana.
And I'm Jessica. This is the new South and Textiles.
The wave of industry that came over the North after the Civil War caused only faint effects in the South.
As late as the 1900s, the South produced an even smaller percentage of the nation's manufactured goods than it had before the Civil War.
The South continued under an economic disadvantage, even when they should have progressed with the steel industry.
The Southerners' working conditions and poor pay did not affect the way they saw employment as a salvation.
The introduction of technology led to the production of a new machine that made cigarette production quicker and easier, replacing the roll-your-own variety. Therefore, tobacco consumption increased, which boosted Southern agriculture. Richmond, Virginia became known as the capital of the nation's tobacco industry. James Buchanan Duke mass-produced the machine-made cigarettes. Duke formed the American Tobacco Company in 1890 to merge his competitors into the tobacco manufacturing industry.
A new South. Industrialists in the North tried to trick the South into developing factories and removing their dependence for plantation fields. However, the South remained rural and did not advance in manufacturing. Among the boosters of a new South, a man named Henry W. Grady, who was the editor of Atlanta Constitution, tried to get the Southerners to become Georgia Yankees and outplay the North at industrialization and commerce, but the South could not progress.
Still, other obstacles lay ahead for the Southerners. The South became part of the most important goal for the North, to keep them under Third World servitude, in an effort to prevent the South from developing a strong industrial base. One of these included the paper barrier of regional rate-setting systems, imposed by the Northern-dominated railroad interests. This paper barrier gave better and more favorable rates to manufactured goods, moving southward from the North, and discriminated against Southern raw materials, moving in the opposite direction. Another obstacle was the economic discrimination against the South, which included the Pittsburgh Plus. The Pittsburgh pricing system was designed by the steel lords in the North to keep the South in an economic disadvantage in the steel industry. The Southern coal and iron deposits were close to where it could be manufactured, which could potentially give the South an advantage since they would have to pay a lot less for shipping. The Northern steel lords then pressured the railroads into charging a fictional fee as if it had been shipped from Pittsburgh. This reduced the South's natural economic advantages and limited the growth of the Birmingham steel industry.
Textiles and cotton. Southerners developed the saying, "Bring the mills to the cotton." Southerners disliked sending their cotton to New England and desired to manufacture their fiber. The production and manufacture of cotton slowly increased industry in the South. Northern capitalists began to build cotton mills in the South because of the tax benefits and the cheap labor source. Cotton mills were established in the extremely poor region of southern Appalachia. Between 1870 and 1900, the number of acres for cotton production nearly doubled. Cotton prices drastically declined by more than 50% in 1890 due to the increased production of cotton. By 1900, the South had 400 cotton mills that employed over 100,000 white workers. Cheap labor was a huge attraction for investors to increase their interests towards diversifying the South's economy. Additionally, it allowed for Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina to become leaders over New England in textile production. However, the South still remained the poorest region in the country.
The increase in textile production attracted rural Southerners who came and sought employment in the mills. These people, who were described to have poured out of the hills, were called hillbillies. Entire families worked from early morning hours to late at night. They were paid half the rate of Northerners and often received pay in the form of store credit at the company store. Though they weren't paid much, poor Southerners saw this employment as a salvation because it provided them with steady jobs and wages and allowed their families to stay together. Poverty was largely due to the South's late start in industrialization and a poorly educated workforce in accordance with Northern capitalism. Lack of education for poor whites and blacks also contributed to the delay of industrial advances, as well as the South's inability to keep up with the country's overall economic progression.
Okay, well that's all for the New South and Textiles.
Thanks for watching!